One of the most fascinating yet unbiblical churches that the world has ever seen. And I'm going to show you exactly why that is. Let's go. So this is Sun Myung Moon, and he was born in 1920. In 1954, shortly after World War II, he started a church called the Holy Spirit Association for the Unification of World Christianity. Quite the mouthful. This is known today as the Unification Church. This church grew and grew and grew and eventually had millions of people that followed it. And it really became popular because of the weddings that he did, where he would basically have random people get married, thousands at a time, and they would all gather for these events. Just the fact that Donald Trump himself spoke at one of their most recent rallies shows you the influence that this man had. And yes, Donald Trump absolutely loves this man and respects him. And that should tell you everything you need to know about Donald Trump. But that's a side note. We won't get into that today. Now, Sun Myung Moon thought that the Bible was a great book and that it taught truth. But ultimately, he thought that the most important book that somebody should read was this book, The Exposition of the Divine Principle. And who wrote this book? Sun Myung Moon. And we're going to look at some of the beliefs that Sun Myung Moon had based off of the writings that he has in this book. And you're going to see that this man was extremely self-absorbed, of course, like any cult leader would be. Let's start with the topic of God. He believes that God is both positive and negative, and God created the universe out of himself, and the universe is God's body. And God does not know the future, is suffering, and he needs man, specifically Sun Myung Moon, to make him happy. On the topic of Yeshua, he believes that Yeshua was a perfect man, and he is the son of Zechariah. He's not born of a virgin, and his mission was to unite the Jews behind him, find a perfect bride, and begin a perfect family. The mission failed, and Yeshua did not resurrect physically, and the second coming of Messiah is fulfilled in Sun Myung Moon, who is superior to Yeshua and will finish Yeshua's mission. I'm not making this stuff up, guys. On the Holy Spirit, he believes it's a feminine spirit who works with Yeshua in the spirit world to lead people to, not the Father, but Sun Myung Moon. On the topic of salvation, they believe that obedience to and acceptance of the true parents, which is Moon and his wife, eliminates sin and results in perfection. And those that are married by Moon, this explains the ceremonies with the marriages, and his wife drink a special holy wine containing 21 ingredients, which includes Moon and his wife's blood. That's not satanic or anything, no big deal. According to Moon, what actually happens to us when we die? Well, he believes that after death, one goes to the spirit world and there is no resurrection, and members advance by convincing others to follow Sun Myung Moon. And everyone will be saved, even Satan. Moon passed away in 2012, and yet many still follow this church today. If you want to see more videos like this, let me know in the comments. Thank you for 100K. See you on the next one.
What in the world we have going on here? Madness been around for a long time and it's not going anywhere, but I think there's a level of it with social media that's never been seen before, because people are taking and mixing thoughts together. Somebody will hear this and they're going to run with it. We heard the Holy Spirit and feminine and all of that other stuff, but it's the level of mixture that we have going on, and people are opening themselves up to it. And madness is everywhere. Madness is everywhere. Let me put this on right here and just take a look at this. Tell me what's happening here. I need y'all to tell me what's happening here. Here's Bruce. I look down at my phone. Who I hear hitting my phone? 11:30. I hear my phone. I look down. I got multiple messages. One of those messages from Bruce. Folk been asking about Bruce. They haven't seen Bruce in a while. I said, I don't know what's going on with Bruce. Give him a few more days and I'll hit his jack. Bruce texts me about a video, and then I looked and I started looking at my mail. I start seeing a few people text me. Apparently, there was a review response, I guess a response or something from y'all know Dr. Brown video was played the other day, and he said he wanted to have dialogue. So apparently Dante responded to him. So Bruce hit me, Exodus hit me, 2-3 other people I see hit me and said, "This is it right here." It looked like I don't know how long. Matter of fact, let me see. I don't know how long the thing was going on, but I said I'll try to get into it tomorrow. I mean, I'm not gonna even do a live in the morning. If anything, I'm gonna try to go and take care of that stuff on the job that I have to take care of and get back in here early to try to go over it. Let me see. I can't even see it. I can't even see. Somebody tell me how long that video is, so I can have an idea how I'm. Oh man, 3 hours and 19 minutes. I gotta figure that out. But Berean and Dante destroy Brown on all points. Oh, of course, I expect you to say it about your bishop. People always speak good about their bishop. But I'm gonna, matter of fact, do me a favor, Bruce, anybody, BereanTeacher@gmail.com, whatever y'all think. Y'all know I can't mess around with what we got going on here. I can't do no 3 hours and change of that video plus other people talking. So if y'all can send me the clips where y'all think that highlight, whatever y'all think the best parts were. But it's looking like this could be not just Dr. Brown. This could be Dr. Brown, Garfield, and urban apologists. The destruction of Dr. Brown, Garfield. I'm gonna hit Garfield before you say you did the video and you ain't even tell me. I gotta hit I gotta throw Garfield in there. Gotta throw Garfield in there because Garfield jumped on. He broke a record. He came on 3 days in a row. I think he came on 3 days in a row, and he's not convinced. Y'all don't got Garfield convinced. Y'all know people involved in apologetics and stuff. They're not really laying into the history like that. I've been telling y'all, stop playing with these folk. Stop playing with these folk. But this is what it is. So you know the video. I guess I don't know. Maybe the live just ended maybe a half an hour ago or something. But if y'all could send me clips throughout the day, I'll try to have all of them lined up as soon as I get off. I'm gonna get back here and we're gonna go over some of that stuff. Let me check the rest of these emails because I came in, I ate and I was knocked out. So what's happening here exactly for those that don't know, Bruce? For those that don't know, Bruce, Orthodox more dead. You can't be. What's going on, Bruce? What's the problem? What's happening, Bruce? Oh, y'all already started. They done started beefing about this thing. Okay, little mother don't like that. Aren't you of the Pentecostal persuasion? You don't like the Passion Prophets? You don't recommend that anyone listen to their prophetic messages? Oh, she's being delivered. Okay, that's how. All right. Bruce, hey, yo, Bruce, you ain't been around a while. What's the matter? Garfield is a liar being used and consequently working for Satan. Unbelievable. Oh, these folk, you can't even start up with these folk. Bruce, you let me know when you gonna be at work tomorrow. You're gonna be too busy. You're gonna be too busy to jump on here, right? Hold on. Matter of fact, hold on. Let me put only Bruce. Bruce, jump on. Let me put the link out here so Bruce can jump on, so Bruce can promote. So Bruce can promote his church. so Bruce can promote his church now. In a few more weeks, something's been laid out. So, even before this video dropped, even before Dr. Brown, stuff already been in the making. I want y'all to know that. So when this other thing jump off, y'all don't say that this is nothing. Not this thing already been in the making. I'm just going to attend. I'm going to attend so y'all can see what's what. But the elders and them church folk been doing this thing 15, 18 years. 15, 18 years. But I'm gonna let y'all see what they doing live and we're gonna talk. I'm gonna try to interview a couple of them people, but we're gonna talk. So don't think it have nothing to do with what's going on right now. You know, this was already planned out before Dr. Brown even jumped on and made his video. That was last week. What day did Dr. Brown make that? Well, y'all seen that. Y'all seen that. Let me get rid of that. I gotta close these windows up. Let me this I don't think I played this morning. Go ahead, Bruce. I'm trying to put this other thing up.
Hey, praise the Most High, and the Son Yeshua HaMashiach.
Praise him. What's going on, man? I look down, I see you. Ain't heard from you in a minute, but I said, you listen, I seen you. You said this is it right here. I just looked at the text not too long ago. But go ahead. I'm trying to post something up. Everybody can hear you.
Yeah, so the other day, Dr. Brown did a live and he brought up Dante's name and brought up Dante's position on the the Israelites and certain sources and stuff. And so, you know how Dante is, Dante is a brother well researched and just like that other guy that came on from the urban church that came on and started spouting lies, and Dante responded and pretty much eviscerated him. And
from what urban church? Which urban church?
You know that black guy who was disrespectful and then Dante responded with the video.
What's he talking about? Y'all help Bruce out.
Richardson or something like that.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Yeah. So it's basically, Dr. Brown did a live.
We played that video, right?
Yeah, I believe so. But anyway, Dante responded, just like and just like he did Brother Richardson, and then pretty much destroyed all his points and stuff. And Dante was respectful in his presentation, and he just brought out truth, multiple sources from a gamut from going all the way back to 1300s, 1400s, all the way brought in Jewish sources, and it was just truth, and Dr. Brown, and he showed how Dr. Brown did not really bring out sources or well-founded research to hold his position. So Dante pretty much destroyed what he was saying, in my opinion, and I'm not speaking for Dante, and he didn't send me on here. I'm just telling you what I heard and the well-researched presentation that he gave, and in his defense, because Dr. Brown actually essentially called him out when you use his name and talk about his work. So Dante, defended his position and defended the Israelite believers, and he showed in the course of his presentation the era of Dr. Brown and how Dr. Brown didn't bring out sources that he knows out there but refused to look at, regarding his point. So pretty much, and the bottom line is Dante destroyed, in his response, he's destroyed Dr. Brown. That's my opinion.
Read some of the stuff that's coming up. You on your cell phone?
Yeah, I can't read. I'm in the bed actually. But
Okay, Bruce. In other this little mother. In other words, no, I thought on Brown's video he invited for a live discussion on the review. That
well,
speaks
I don't know about all
volumes.
that. But all I know is what I don't know. I don't know about all that. All I know is that he brought it up and he put some of Dante's. He brought up Dante and Dante's work, and Dante responded, and he responded well. And Dante is thorough, and I think Dante did an awesome job, and he pretty much destroyed what Dr. Brown was talking about on all his points. And he essentially during the
What
course.
stuck out to you that you remember? So I'm gonna have to try to go find some. Somebody, y'all got to help me on
Well,
this.
what stuck out for me is basically the resources going all the way back to history, and the resources showing about Ashkenazi and the Scythians. What stuck out to me was in the final analysis, that the Jews that came out of Africa, they were black. Which Dr. Brown said maybe a couple of hundred, maybe 100,000 blacks were Jews that came to America, or end up being
Dr.
Americans.
Brown said a number.
Yeah, he said 100,000.
Oh, God,
Dr. Brown said about 100,000 blacks were slaves in America. Probably could have been. They always give that little if and so forth.
So at least he was a little better than Garfield. But at least he put a number out there and said that they were or could have been.
Yeah, but Dante showed the numbers. How many people was sent over here, and you do the numbers, and you talking about 100,000, and all the other.
Got that number from?
Yeah, what I don't know where Dr. Brown didn't say he did never, and that's so. And here's the thing too, Dante asked him questions as he was responding. Show me this. Show me that. Where'd you got that from? So during the course of his presentation and debunking Dr. Brown's assertions, Dante was asking him, show me this. Where'd you get this from? Show me your source here. Show me this. And so you'll see it. If you read it, you can't just cherry pick certain things. You got to watch the whole thing. And that's why, that's why it's very important for you to watch everything in this whole context so you can see the whole thing. If you cherry pick, you're not going to understand what's going on. Just like if you took certain portions of Dr. Brown's.
Dawn said he said a few 100,000.
Yeah, maybe he said 100,000, maybe a few 100,000. But when it was millions that came over here, and even the ancient sources are saying the same thing too. So Dante's asking basically.
Dr. Brown's video, somebody just said.
What did you say?
Little mother asked, did you watch all of Dr. Brown's video?
I did.
Somebody else said that Dr. Brown wanted to debate live. Some people don't debate live. Did he also say a video response was good?
Yeah.
Maybe Dr. Brown did say,
here's the thing.
He touched on go ahead.
But here's the thing. Dr. Brown responded in a video and brought up Dante's name and Dante's work. Dante responded with his video and pretty much destroyed it.
I'm reading the comment section. I ain't saying nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but no people they will they probably didn't even see the whole 2 hours what Dante did in context. So they're making comments and they don't even know. And even see, a lot of people will reject knowledge no matter what, so they can keep their position. And that's just the bottom line. If you for truth or you're not. Dr. Brown has some good points. I admit that, but you got to be intellectually honest and say, okay, Dr. Brown gave his position and he brought up Dante's work and he brought up certain points in his live video. Dante responded in his live pretty much debunking what Dr. Brown said. And in the course of...
you confused. I think Just Saying was saying... So Dr. Brown and Dante had a discussion on YouTube. Where is that at? I want to see that. I don't know about all that. I'm talking about saying, he's not saying that at all. Just saying, I'm saying that at all.
No, I'm saying that Dr. Brown, I believe you even showed it on your on Berean TV. You showed what Dr. Brown was saying.
But no, he's thinking that there was a discussion that already took place.
No, no,
I
no.
don't think
So
so. You don't know if nobody, if anybody, I don't know if no YouTube video with those on a live talking to
no,
each
there's no
other.
live. There's
Bruce
no
not
live.
saying
It's basically Dr. Brown. Dr. Brown presented a video. He brought up Dante. He brought up Dante's work and so forth. And Dante responded with truth and facts and pretty much debunked and pretty much destroyed what Dr. Brown was saying. I mean, it's just overwhelming evidence. And for someone to look at that and not see it, and they're just being intellectually dishonest. But you have to watch both interviews in its entirety so you can understand and judge honestly and correctly.
you
You
saw the
just can't
whole
say,
video from beginning to end. You talking about the whole video in time, 3 hours and 15 minutes.
yeah.
Bruce,
If you can't comment, if you can't watch the whole thing, you can't comment.
y'all
Just
hear
like
that,
if you
right?
can't watch Dr. Brown's entire video, you can't comment. You can't get snippets of Dr. Brown's entire context of what he was trying to present and to try to make a judgment. That's just that's just intellectually dishonest. Period. You got to watch both, and if you can't do that, then you should shut up. I'm sorry.
Listen to this, Bruce. This more talking to you, Bruce. Who proved, quote unquote, proved millions of Jews on slave ships? I'm unaware.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You got to watch the video, Doctor.
Dr. Brown said hundreds of thousands or 100,000 or something.
He said 100,000 came to America, but probably would have been Jews or something to that effect.
And you're
That's why
you're saying that's nonsense in your opinion.
Yeah, he said no. Well, basically, he was saying only 100,000 Jews came to America, or maybe 200,000. May have been 1 or 200,000. When we know there was millions that came to Americas, and so because the bottom line is the narrative that he and his people want to push that we're not the people, but he's trying to do it in a kind, gentle way.
But this is what I'm saying. Brown, Henry Abramson, none of the Jews are not saying, are the Jews saying, y'all help me out? Are the Jews saying y'all are not the people? The Jews are bearing witness there's black Jews. Y'all trying to say them other folk not Jews.
No, what else? That's why I invite
all you black folk here in America, the whole slave trade. No, I don't think Dr. Brown is saying that. I don't think nobody's saying
well,
that.
He said maybe 100,000.
This is the black Jews. I heard the other dude jumped on the oh God, the biblical rumble room talking about them people over there don't want to accept us. That dude some people don't want to accept us. What is mad black Israelites I rock with?
Well, that was only one point. That was one point of the whole rebuttal from Dante. That was not the
talking about the Edomites in that 500. Matter of fact, let me get you out.
So I invite your listening audience to watch both before you can judge honestly, intellectually honest, and make a decision and look at the evidence that was presented. Dr. Brown was bringing up a lot of evidence, but wait and see how Dante responded with his evidence. You cannot take snippets of Dr. Brown's presentation and judge, and you have to watch this whole thing. Then you look at Dante's. You can watch. You can watch the Marvel things, and you can watch Fast and the Furious. You sit your behinds down and watch that video. Don't be acting like you can't watch 2 hours of video and you can watch TV and all that garbage. Don't even try it. Be honest and watch the whole thing.
Hold on. All right. Appreciate it. All right. Listen, y'all.
Brown, kick it off, and then I'm going to respond to his statements.
So, who exactly are Ashkenazi Jews? What's our connection to ancient Israel as Jewish people? What's our genetic identity? This is a discussion that comes up a lot. A lot of Hebrew Israelites refer to us as fake Jews and things like that. So I want to take some time to unpack this, but I want to interact in particular with one video that was posted on the YouTube channel of Dante Fortson. Mr. Fortson, if you're watching this, I think you'll see I'm going to interact in a respectful way as watching your video. It seems that you're seeking to interact in the same way as seekers of truth. And both of us do not believe in a race-based salvation, so we affirm those things clearly. But the question of identity is very important. Has a Black history been hijacked by whites or things being misrepresented? These things should be looked at. Now, what's interesting is that there are folks who watch my debate with Sakari leader
Wait a minute. He said, well, he's getting to, he's talking about something right now. Has black history been hijacked by whites or some white people? Have the church and other organizations attempt to suppress who the slaves were? Everybody's on the internet running around. They know who we were. Not everybody. Y'all know everybody don't mean everybody. But a lot of people, they know who we were. They hiding the truth. Y'all blind to the truth. Let's see what Dr. Brown's saying. Somebody was saying that Dr. Brown was never arguing that there wasn't no Jews, if I'm correct. Let me let it go.
Like really Hebrew. And of course, many in his camp that he did wonderfully, that I knew was going to happen before we started. No matter what I said, they would say he did a great job. But there are many others who said, why'd you pick that guy? He can't debate. He didn't know what he was talking about. Why don't you debate Ron Dalton? Why don't you debate Dante Fortson? So that's where I began to see these names come up. Now I'm not here challenging everyone. I want to debate you. And it's not like some macho kind of thing. This is in the interest of seeking truth. I left the door open that if anyone contacted me, who is a recognized leader in the Hebrew Israelite camp, and we could agree on a subject matter and format, that I'd be happy to do a debate. So that hand of invitation is open. Should any of these gentlemen, Ron Dalton, Dante Fortson, want to have a public or private dialogue debate, we can agree on subject and format, I'd be very happy to, for the sake of truth and for the honor of the Lord. I want to say this, though, up front. The first book of Dante's I just bought was this one. I hope to get some more. Undeniable, Full-Color Evidence of Black Israelites in the Bible. And towards the front of the book, page 5, Dante says this: the claim that there is no evidence of a Black Israel are always made by people that haven't bothered to look for any of the evidence. They'll often repeat what they've been told to believe, but the truth is that there's lots of evidence, both biblically and historically, that back up why many of us believe Israel was and still is Black. So here's where I want to take exception to what you said. I have looked at the evidence carefully. For sure, the original Israelites weren't white. We understand that.
He's saying for sure the original Israelites are not white. I don't know no Christian saying that. I mean, Jewish person saying that. More saying Brown argument is that the Jews were brown first, brown-skinned people. You know, we always bring up them Bin Laden looking like people, but y'all don't like it. There's only black and white in your minds. The Jews were brown first and became other colors, including black and white, through admixture. That's what, I don't know what's the problem, because that's what I thought it always was. So the only difference, let's make sure we're on the same page, that you Black Israelites are saying the Jews were not a brown people like Bin Laden. They was black like me. That's type of one, that's what it is. Nobody talking about white people. Nobody talking about white people in the garden. Nobody talking about white people, Cain and Abel. Nobody talking about white people. Brown people. Brown people. Y'all don't like that. Brown people. That's what it is, right? Somebody said, how are you going to argue with that? You can't argue with that. So now if you want to make the brown people black people, I guess according to the one drop, who knows? Who knows? Let's see what Brown is saying and how this thing even start off, because I know 3 hours. But let's just hear some of this right here, though.
And Jesus himself wasn't white. He wasn't a white European. And I've written.
He's saying that. I know white Christians that say Jesus wasn't white. Those pictures came 1,500 years after Jesus was on the set. But these people are arguing it like this is doctrine. But we've had a whitewashing in Christianity. We cannot lie about that. So we have everybody in here that's a Bible-believing Christian. You have inherited this garbage that we got to now deal with. A lot of folk too deep to talk about this. It just is what it is. Then y'all run around here. Now y'all, like I say, y'all gonna bang out. You see the other brothers want to call out, yeah, and I still need them 100 questions. 100 questions for IUIC. They came in and was a little thrown off because they started answering the Christmas. You know, the regular Israelite G, they started answering the Christmas tree, Easter egg questions and all of that. Then another brother jumped off and that whole thing went sideways. It often goes that way in religious discussions. This is how things go. But let's see what's going on. I've been saying them folk in apologetics need to deal with this history. This history ain't going nowhere. Folk running around here saying you can't be saved and be Israel. I was talking to Ella about to say you can't be saved and be Israel. Then we had folk running around here like Paul was eating pork chop. Folk done took clips of that and ran a whole muck with that. I actually believe you could keep your culture. We got the facts that's in the Bible. Facts that's in the Bible. After, I know we're going to argue is the book of Acts a prescriptive, descriptive. After Jesus got up out that grave and was seen of men 40 days, many infallible proofs, as the writer of Luke, the writer of the book of Acts say, that he went up, Paul did some Israelite stuff. Nobody can deny that. And he went into the Sabbath day. We see that 5-6 times in scriptures, and reasoned with them out of the scripture. The whole city came together on the Sabbath day to hear the matter. So the stuff that's undisputable. Let me let the video play with my phone here. Yeah, they go start hitting me. I got a coffee or energy drink or something in that refrigerator. I'm not touching nothing. I had a couple hours sleep. I'm gonna play a few minutes of this, and we gonna call it the night. I'm gonna hit Garfield Lamar. I'm gonna hit well, I'm gonna put the link out there, but I'm gonna let Garfield know. I'm gonna let him know it tomorrow. Listen, and I might title it like that. We'll see how we go.
Written and talked about the European Christian hijacking of Jesus, where the Jews are like these demon figures and Jesus is this handsome white European and things like that. So by all means, let's look at the original identity of the people of Israel. But I'm quite sure historically that they weren't black either, and that there's nothing in the Bible that says as a people they were black. And this is having studied it, looked at it. I have other colleagues who.
So he's saying they were not white people. Then he's saying they're not black people either. Many people in the Christian church, including some urban apologists, have been saying that Jesus wasn't black in a sense like we're black Africans. He was a brown Middle Easterner. People want to come and argue the word Middle East didn't even exist. But that don't mean people like bin Laden did not live on this planet 2,000 years ago. So the argument is an American black and white. Black like me or white like Dr. White looking like Dr. or Brown on the screen right here.
Who work closely with African-American churches who look in the scriptures for an African presence, and they also do not believe that Israel was originally black or Jesus was black or the apostles were black. So that's where I take exception. Don't say that the claims are being made by people who haven't looked for themselves. I've looked carefully. And here, let's just talk candidly for a minute.
All right. So you say you take exception with me saying that people haven't looked, and you say you've looked, and there are people you know that have looked for the black presence. You specifically said the African presence in the Bible. And you say you just don't see a black Israel. Fine. What?
So now, hold on. Somebody just said, Bruce, did you see? So Dower got a video on that same video that we just watched on the screen. Pastor Dower did a response to Dr. Brown's statement also. Type of one. All right, let me let this thing go so we at least get an idea of where these folk coming from.
Well, I'm going to help you out. I have a site called Black History in the Bible that I started in 2015, December of 2015, with the goal of debunking the claims of Black Hebrew Israelites, as some of you call us. Now, at the time, I was a Christian. I did not say I was an Israelite. I thought that the only Israelites were the Ashkenazi Jews, the Sephardic Jews, Jews around the world
All right, we do have to stop right there because there are some Christians that feel the Jews are those people. And Dowell has a video. Okay, I didn't even know that. I'm gonna have to go look into all of that tomorrow. That he's saying that he was a Christian looking to debunk it. That's how he gave that testimony on here before. He was a Christian looking to debunk the Israelites because he was challenged by them other folk. to look into it. So he said he did that, and he was of the impression that when you think Jews, you see the curly, you see the Jews, light-skinned Jews that's in Borough Park or looking like Dr. Brown or Hasidic with the curls and the black on.
We knew who they were. And so in my journey to debunk all of the evidence started to pile up. Well, the reason I say people haven't looked is because I've managed to find this much evidence and catalog it. As you can see, and shout out to the curators on the site that have helped collect this information as well. So anyway, this information has been organized by myself and the curators that help. And you can see here, it's organized by century, starting in 3500 BC. And we work all the way up to 2021. There are still pieces that have not been added. As you can see, we all the way back here from 70 AD, we can trace this thing. And then we can look at the evidence by region, countries, places, people, groups. Started adding jewelry that was mentioned, rituals. Again, right here, Arabia, Middle East. These are all mentions. Come down here. All these areas have people, groups, landmarks, all that. And then we have the evidence from the universities, organizations, government institutions, different quotes, evidence by appearance and racial features, mentions of different racial features that have to do with Black Jews historically, albino, Asiatic.
Listen to this. Listen to what Gia just said. When you make the identity doctrine your idol, people get really hostile when challenged. Listen, I'm going to tell you what the elder and I were talking about earlier. This, I'm telling you, church people, this thing ain't going nowhere. The statement that he just made, that he thought the Jewish people were light-skinned people and those were the only people. Sorry, but this is just what it is. I happen to be fortunate to understand back in 90, 91 that there were Ethiopian, that there were different types of darker hue of Jews that were just legitimate Jews and following heavily Dr. Ben and all of that, we the Black Jews. But a lot of people weren't into the writing of Ben. They weren't building Rastafarians. They wasn't hearing nothing about Ethiopia and all of this other stuff. So I can say I was privy to some of that. But a lot of people are not. A lot of people, he's admitting that he thought they were light-skinned. A lot of people were under that impression about light skin. That whole conscious community thing. And we've been hearing a lot of people, not just Black Israelites, saying that certain people were the synagogue of Satan. Not just Black Israelites. I could show you the other researcher. I could show you a few people that got books out here and videos out here that's been using the synagogue of Satan. That's been using that stuff when referring to people, that's been putting claims out. These people spinning the narrative. These people control Hollywood. These people are strong on Wall Street. These people are strong in the courtrooms. These people are strong in business. These people have multiple Nobel Peace Prizes. These folk are just different. So it's not going to go anywhere. And if there's been some lies, them lies have to be discussed. You can't just put it aside because it's going to look like the church been privy to some information the church folk been willingly hiding. You hear what Bruce, y'all hear Bruce come on here repeating that stuff? The Protestant, the wicked Catholic Church and the seminary, y'all hear this stuff. This ain't going nowhere. But you church people, y'all ain't got to deal with this history. It's okay. Just continue to bang out with Galatians.
Black skin, blonde. This is not just specifically for Black Israelites, but this traces a lot of people. So a lot of keywords that come up, but blonde, brown, brunette, dark races. For those of you that are familiar with the Melanesians, you know that they are blonde haired people. But yeah, evidence by subject, commentaries, DNA. Now, so when you say that you take exception and that you have looked, I have to question how hard that people have looked for this information when it's all right here and it's being cataloged as it's being found. So yeah, hopefully that helps you out. Since you said you take exception and you have not seen it, hopefully you will come over here to blackhistoryinthebible.com and you will start to look through all of these sources. Some of these are, under multiple dates because of the reference. But anyway, hopefully you'll come over here and look and you will find more evidence since you said you have not seen it.
Churches who look in the scriptures for an African presence, and they also do not believe that Israel was originally black or Jesus was black.
I got to talk about that. African presence in the Bible. The other guy that wrote the book on the curse of Ham. Who got Yamauchi's book? Africa and the Bible with the foreword by Kitchen. Y'all know who Kitchen is? Y'all know who Yamauchi is? That's how you pronounce that guy's name? The majority of people, oh, here's my brush right here. I got to get the majority of the black church and people that I know that's involved in church believe, including myself, believe that Abraham and them was the brown people. That's like when y'all hear me on my original man, Abraham and them was the brown people. The brown people is the Bin Laden and them people. Forget the term Middle East. There were brown people on this planet. So the position that he holds, the majority of black pastors hold, black Christians hold, that I know that are educated. So when they speak of the Greeks and they speak of Cush, they're talking about just dark people. But when we start dividing and dealing with the specific nations, the Bible speaks on nations. It's a little different than some people have. You said, Joseph, you got that book? Excellent book. Excellent book. I left my physical copy up there, and then come to find out, I tried to look 2 days ago, they don't even have a Kindle version of it. So I'm gonna just go ahead and spend that 40 cents. Fair use. So that's the position that majority of educated black pastors, that they're not black in the sense of African in that sense, but these were brown, different people. Not that they're white people. Only people pushing that they're white people, and the black pastors think they white people and all that, is the camps. And a lot of you non-camping, what they were called moderates.
Or the apostles were black. So that's where I take exception. Don't say that the claims are being made by people who haven't looked for themselves. I've looked carefully. And here, let's just talk candidly for a minute about blind spots, all right? When I was in college, I had a Christian friend, black Christian friend, who went to pretty much an all-black church in Brooklyn. And we would hang out together. We were people of like heart. So he invited me to a church service there. And to my surprise, there was a mural on the wall, and it was Jesus and the apostles, and they were all black. I remember saying to him, why'd you have, that's not accurate. And he said, well, it's just a point of identification. And, you look at a high school yearbook, the first thing you look for is your picture. So we want people to be able to identify. Here's my blind spot. If they had all been white, it wouldn't have fazed me. That would have been wrong also, right?
Sounds like he's keeping it a buck. Listen to JT Mack, y'all. This is how y'all church folk get to aggravating me. Oh boy, Dante is inviting Dr. Brown to look through his sources on his website. I don't think nothing is wrong with that. That's what hurts me. I'm not into them folk like that, but if he been inviting people on the regular to look through his sources, a few people in the back chat have looked through some sources and said these sources look okay. But if we look through 6, 12 sources, I got all right, got to approach these people with caution because this is looking shaky. But I don't know if 6 or 8 sources out of 1,000, out of 800 sources, I don't feel the church looking hard enough. I'm not going to shoot down and be like, yo, don't look at these sources. Oh, his sources is all shaky. I don't know they all shaky because I ain't looked through all of them. I didn't even look through half of them, and I don't know nobody. I can holler, I'm the only one in here. I'm the only one in here. I can holler. God got me set up right here so I can talk loud. I don't know nobody in the Christian church, no apologists. Nobody looked through 50% of Dante's sources. Nobody. Church can't talk to me right now. The church can't talk to me about history. Y'all can't talk to me. That's Berean's position. That's Berean's position. I ain't trying to help the awakening, but that's my position. If you only look through 10 sources, you can't speak on it. If you could get 12, a dozen apologists, a dozen pastors together, and they say we ain't dealing with the sources, I'm not dealing with them. Unless they can show me, yo, I got 50, I got 20, I deal with 15, and we all come together. We found 125 of these sources, all shaky, all out of context. I'm a bang out. But until then, church ain't been doing nothing but talking. Damon Richardson, great embarrassment to me. Not me, because remember, I ain't part of the church. I ain't a part of apologetics. But that Negro came on here sipping that lot, ain't talking crazy. He ain't did enough. Now with that history, he ain't did enough. Now name somebody. I'm going to wait. Let me sit up. Y'all going to make me sit up. I didn't even drink that thing to drink, but y'all going to make me sit up because y'all want to come on here talking crazy. I'm embarrassed as a black Christian. I'm going to tell y'all that. I'm embarrassed as a black Christian. Dante one Negro. Dante one Negro. I'm just talking about me, my personal feelings. All you degreed up seminary, all you folk that's running around here talking about this stuff, y'all should do something to help the black church. Honestly, hit me. She said, you should do something. You should write a book. I don't know how many books I got down with a broken computer. Thank God for the church. And the Israelite, my Israelite people too, writing me, I can't beef. Help me get the new joint. Like, yo, we can't be shut down. We got to keep this thing going. Because they know we looking for truth. But you church folk can't talk to me. Not about sources, not about putting that work in. No. I got together some of the greatest minds in that back chat. I got some thinkers that haven't been getting no exposure. The exposure that they deserve, they ain't been getting that. So I'm saying, all right, we're gonna bring this thing together. Look at this. Now, God, these women I can't. Hello, Little Mother said, Berean TV, honest question. Has Dante looked through all his sources? I don't know. I don't talk to these people. Probably not. You know what we were saying in the back chat? These folk just run and look for word black. They get a whole bunch of books and they just look for the word black Jew, and they just get to running like that. And I'm not sure. I think they said that he had to pull a source or two down before, so he probably didn't. And then if somebody, upon closer scrutiny, somebody looked and somebody said, oh, such and such ain't right, and they end up pulling it. I'm being serious because you up here hollering. No, I'm hollering for a reason because y'all already know my position. I don't think the church, there's enough people in the black church. I personally, I can't have my opinion now. I can't have my opinion now. Oh, boy, it's too late for these church people stuff. I think the church people could do more if they understand the severity of this and just dismantling all the information he's put out there. I don't ask for a lot. I sent him, Benaiah, a few other people. Not a lot, but just because they're doing a great bit to help this quote-unquote awakening. Orthodox Moore said, no, he hasn't. Orthodox Moore holds the position that we hold, that they were brown people. And through admixture, you get the lighter ones. The Bible said they're going to be scattered. So some were scattered. They're going to look like the people in Europe. Some are going to look like the people in Asia with the facial features. Some they're going to look like the people who they're around, especially if you're around somebody 3, 4, 5, 800 years. I don't feel there's enough people, but I was like, okay, maybe people that do have an interest in it, Garfield and a 93, maybe an Orthodox Moore, people that are not what we would say professed Christians, and Dr. Brown is, maybe it's for the Jew to look into it like Dr. Brown, or somebody that's not even in the faith like Garfield, but likes history, who come from historians, who come from people that are educators. Maybe they'll do it. So maybe I shouldn't focus on the black pastor, the black preachers, black ministers, or black urban apologists to do it. Don't bother me, Little Mother. Don't bother me. I got my feelings. I'm gonna ride with that. Because I promise you, people in Christianity, you church folk, and I'm down with the church. Matter of fact, don't even say that. Don't even say that. I feel like I'm telling y'all, if some stuff get to coming out, you church people, let me just say this.
But that wouldn't have fazed me because I grew up, didn't even think twice about it. So, Dante, if that's okay to call you by your first name, I'm all in for the search for real identity and for accuracy in presentation. And I fully recognize that a lot of things get whitewashed over the centuries, and that Jesus has been made into this lovely European guy, etc. So I share that with you. And I understand if you feel that something's been stolen or heritage has been stolen,
Mr. Trinity,
you want to take it back.
Can both sides
above all, though, I want to emphasize
Elaborate a little bit on that, brother.
My identity is being in Jesus, in Yeshua, a child of God, forgiven, washed with the blood. It's my life experience that I'm raised Jewish, grew up in a Jewish home, was bar mitzvahed, that my dad grew up Jewish, that his dad grew up Jewish, that his dad before that grew up Jewish, as far back as we can trace it, and some of them very religious going back. So that's just my life experience. But who I am, what makes me tick to the core of my being, is that I'm a child of God through faith in Jesus Yeshua.
Type of one if y'all agree with that. What makes you tick is faith in Yeshua. And then we have introduced the fact that people that hold a dispensational position like Johnny Mack and so many others in this good here United States of America, talking about God ain't done with Israel, it is a little bit important especially if you hold that position. We know that there are people in the body of Christ that hold that position. I just can't articulate it. I can't articulate it. It's bigger than some of y'all may think. There's a lot of things connected to this. 700 Club been hollering, and all them folk been hollering. John Hagee been hollering, send money to these folk, be a blessed folk, and all of that. It's just a lot. That's all I can say.
And I welcome all others who are children of God through faith in Jesus Yeshua. And it could well be that there are as many as a couple 100,000 Black Jews in America today. That could well be.
All right. So,
okay, you did say
talk about blind spots. You say that your friend had this painting up of a Black Jesus, and you didn't think that was accurate. So you told him it's not accurate, which makes me wonder how many times you went into a place and saw a white Jesus and you told them it's not accurate, because as you admit to, you know that Jesus has been whitewashed. But I also take exception with your vast underestimation of how many potential Israelites could be here in America. It shows that you have not researched this subject as well as you claim to have researched this subject. And
so Dr. Brown did give you an impression. He did say he researched it. He looked into it, right? That's what y'all heard? I tell you, I only got 3 years in my brain.
I'm going to use one group. I'm not going to use the Akan, the Yoruba, and others. I do acknowledge that there are others for those of you who do send me messages about this. But me, I'm 48% Igbo, and so I've had a little more of the interest in the Igbo. And so I'm going to point out something to you specifically, Dr. Brown, that you may not know. Now, if you Google how many African Americans have Igbo ancestry, you'll see right here. This is a quote from Wikipedia, but I'm going to show you some other sources in a second. This is just the first thing that comes up when you Google it. It says Chambers has been quoted saying, "My research suggests that perhaps 60% of Black Americans have at least one Igbo ancestor." So that's the high end, 60%. I'm going to show you another source in a second that says maybe less than that. So over here, this
now, are all Igbo claiming Israelite descent, or just out of the millions of Igbo, a few? How does that work right there? I'm listening though.
It's right here. I'll have links to all these sources in the description for everybody that wants to check out these links for yourself. This right here says that at one point it says at some points in the 18th century, they constituted over 30% of the enslaved Black population. It's talking about the Igbo over here. It talks about the 17th and 19th centuries, the Bite of Biafra, the war that's going on out there. So right here, it says they constituted over 30% of the enslaved Black population in some places. So on the low end, 30% of slaves may have been Igbo, and on the high end, 60%. Right here, some suggest that perhaps 60% of Black Americans have at least one Igbo ancestor. Let's see. Here is an estimated number of the population during slavery, and this is from, let me see this site. I'm not going to go all the way. It's not that far. Okay. From the National Library of Medicine. This is a government website, and this breaks down the population during slavery. So I'll just point out some numbers now. And the reason I'm doing this, I'm going to come back to your number in a second, Dr. Brown, of as many as a couple 100,000. So if 30% to 60%, we'll say that's the number of Black Americans who have Igbo ancestry. If 30 to 60%, if we look at that, the numbers will break down as follows. In 1700, right about here, with that population, right here. This is the one I used. So 1700 to 1710, but that population, 30% would be roughly 12. Was it right here where it ends at? I just want to make sure I get this right and give you guys the right numbers. This is the beginning. This is the ending. I went off the ending number, 1700 to 1710. So that 41,000 number. 30% of that, 12,553. 60% of that, 25,106. And so you can do the math all the way down until the end of slavery in 1865. If you do the numbers at the end of slavery based on these 3.6 million here, 30% of that population would be 1,089,100, and 60% of that population would be 2,178,201. And that is in 1865. There would have been over between 1 million and 2.1 million people, Black people in America with Igbo ancestry. I'm going to show you why this is important in a second. Let me see. This right here is going to talk more about what happened in Biafra. Again, I'll have these links in there for you. This right here is a memorandum to the president. Now, the reason the Igbo are so important to Black history is because people suspect that the Igbo are Israelites. And I'm going to show you this. I'll start here again. U.S. Department of State Archive memorandum, White House, Washington. This is 1969 from Henry Kissinger.
Oh, no, not the Henry Kissinger. All right, so people think all Igbo are Israelites or Jewish. That's what it's sounding like here. All Igbo are Jewish people. Oh, that Henry Kissinger thing. All right, well, we'll play it anyway. You already said it.
To the president. I'll skip over to here. The Igbos are the wandering Jews of West Africa. So that right there is one reference to the Igbos being Jews. And you and people have said, not you specifically, Dr. Brown, but other people have tried to make all kind of different excuses and give explanations as to why he would say this. He was joking. He was just talking. He wasn't being serious. And yet we find that the statement has truth to it, because as we start to investigate,
what did that Jewish statement mean with Henry Kissinger when he said the Igbo are wandering Jews? What did that statement mean? Did y'all pull that up and y'all look at that statement? What do y'all? I'm slow, so I don't count. What do y'all pull it up and read it? What did that mean when Kissinger said that? What did that mean when Kissinger said that? What did that mean? They're like the Jews in Europe, just from place to place, ain't got their own homeland. What did Kissinger mean when that was said?
We see here, CNN, Nigeria's Igbo Jews, lost tribe of Israel. I'll just read this part real quick. It says the Igbos are one of Nigeria's largest ethnic groups, with population estimates ranging from 20 to 50 million. Abor is convinced that Igbo's ancestors were Jews. And he goes through and he talks about how the Igbo come from Eri. And I'll read this second part here. From generation to generation, some Igbo have passed down various versions of a migration story framed around Jacob, a patriarch of Judaism. A popular version of the narrative holds that Gad, the seventh son of Jacob, had 3 sons who settled in present-day southeastern Nigeria, which is predominantly inhabited by the Igbo. Those sons of Eri, Erodi, and Areli, as mentioned in the book of Genesis, are said to have fathered clans, established kingdoms, and founded towns still in existence in southeastern Nigeria today, including Owerri, Umuleri, Arachukwu, and Aguleri. So people think that the Igbos may be Jews. Here we have, what is this? Jewish Roadie. This is Jewish Rhode Island, serving the Jewish community of Rhode Island. They have an article here on the Igbo Jews. Let's see. Let's keep going. Now, remember, the importance of this is that 30 to 60% of Black Americans have Igbo ancestry. Are Igbo the lost Black Jewish tribe? This is from 2015. Let me see what else we got here. This is a PDF. This is Nigeria's Igbo Jews, Jewish identity and.
And there was a question mark behind that last one right there. That was a question mark. I think they said when this was live a few hours ago, 1,400 people on the live watching it. 1,400 people on the live watching a response. I'll tell y'all why I mentioned that number 1,400 on the live to Dr. Brown watching a response.
Practice in Abuja. I will send or share this link again in the description. This is from the Jewish Virtual Library, the Igbo Jews. You guys can go through and read all of this information on the Igbo Jews. Let's see. This is from Kulanu, all of us. Now, Dr. Brown, I would ask you, do you find Kulanu to be a valid Jewish organization? If you do, then it's interesting that they also talk about the Igbo on the Igbo. And you guys can go through and read all this. Now, if you don't find them to be a valid Jewish organization or a legit Jewish organization, please tell me why. So let's see. After participating in a congressional delegation to Africa this past spring, I had profound desire to spend a longer period of time there on my summer sabbatical. As I searched for the best possible way to serve as volunteer rabbi, I found my way to Kulanu, who informed that they had long been interested in sending a volunteer rabbi to Nigeria. Upon further conversation, I received an extensive education on the Igbo tribe, a large Nigerian tribe of 40 million whose clans trace their lineage to the lost tribes of Israel. So now, if they are tracing their lineage to the lost tribe of Israel, and 30 to 60% of Black Americans have Igbo ancestry, then it would make sense that more than a couple 100,000 would be related to Israel. I'll say it that way. Now, that only matters if this is true. So for those of you who don't know about Kulanu, you guys can go to the About page. Here is the About page. You can pause it right here and read this from your screen, or you can just go there and read it for yourself. So now here's another event, or here's an event where Black people were reuniting with their Igbo family. And this is taking a second. Let me see. Close that down. All right. So this event right here, let me hit the refresh button and see if it'll. All right. Let me come back after I fix the computer problem. All right. So the other website was down. That was the problem, but I'll have the link there for you guys. So if it does come back up, you guys can see it. So now the Obadiah Alliance, which Dr. Brown, I would appreciate if you tell me if you accept them as a valid Jewish organization as well. They are right here. The Obadiah Alliance, the exiles from Jerusalem who are in Sepharad will possess the towns of the south. Obadiah 1:2. So the Obadiah Alliance, to create their mission to create an alliance that will speak in favor of the Spanish and Portuguese Jews around the world. So this right here is their team. You guys can go through, read these names. You guys can go through and see these people's picture for yourself, I believe. Let me see. Did I go all the way down far enough? All right. No, I did not. All right. Here we go. All right. So this is the Obadiah Alliance. They are a Sephardic Jewish organization. So how are they tied to Black Americans? How are they tied to the Igbo? The claim that Black Americans are Israelite, and your assertion, Dr. Brown, that there may be as many as a couple 100,000 here in the U.S. Well, let me see here. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but as you can see, this article right here, this is posted on LinkedIn. But Jewish rabbinate rules Igbos are Israelites, And let me see. Let me give you a real quick look at the Igbo land map, so you guys can see exactly where Igbo land is located. All right, here we go. This is Nigeria. Let me see. It just refreshed. Well, we're going to be looking at this area right here. Nigeria right here. This is Igbo land, the dark green, the dark red over here. This is Igbo land in Nigeria. So the rabbinate ruled that Igbo are ancient Israelites. So now this is the Obadiah Alliance's information, their contact, their location, their email. You guys can check this out on your own time, but I will read the question. Basically, are Igbos Israelites? I will read the answer. Let me see. I'll read this. I'll read, let's see, these 3 paragraphs, and then we'll move on. Due to the transgressions of our ancestors, our nation was divided into 2 kingdoms before the destruction of the first temple in Jerusalem. During the time of the prophet Jeremiah, while the vast majority of Israelites went to Babylon, some Israelites relocated to Egypt and founded the Elephantine Jewish community. Genetic studies of the Y chromosome of Igbo men demonstrate that they originated in the Levant Basin. I'll pause right there real quick, Dr. Brown, because my personal DNA, if you guys want to go watch my DNA journey, I have 4 parts and I go into my personal DNA. I am 48% Igbo. But
this might be the problem now. I think Abu, I can't even remember all of this stuff right here. If I'm correct, his DNA wasn't the average Black American DNA. I'm not sure if I remember, because so many videos, so much stuff that went down with all these folk, but his DNA, we can't use his DNA because he ain't regular. With Dr. Brown and them light-skinned folk. I'm gonna have to try to knock out this work. I'm gonna have to try to get off early tomorrow. Because if I'm remembering, if this thing is coming, my memory recalls me, he's connected to that Middle East. But not all you Black folk in here, all you Black folk in America connected to the Middle East? Well, you ought to stop playing with me.
But my paternal haplogroup is E1B1B, and it is linked to the Levant. My paternal ancestry is linked to the Levant, even though I am 48% Igbo. Now, we'll just keep reading. I'll come back to that connection later. Sharing genetic links with Sephardic and Ashkenazi Jews alike, while there is yet an exhaustive academic genetic study of the Igbos, the data of the majority of those who have reported their autosomal and Y chromosome DNA supports that their ancestors migrated from the Levant Basin into East Africa. And for those of you who watch my 23andMe or my DNA journey, I go through 23andMe and show that exact thing, and then settled in West Africa. Moreover, Igbos are organized according to clans. The elders transmit genealogies orally back to our patriarch Jacob. Indeed, many Igbos descended from Kohanim and Levites. These facts attest to the ancient Israelite origin of the Igbos. Moreover, the historiographical data written during the time of the Songhai Empire reveals that Portuguese and Moroccan Jews traded in the region of Igbo land. Records also evidence the union between Portuguese Jews and West Africans in the region, whereby local women underwent halakhic conversions to the Jewish people. Such was the case in Senegal, Gambia, Nigeria, Togo, Benin, and Angola, basically all up and down the west coast of Africa. We're going to come back there because Dr. Brown is going to mention something that I think is worthy to point out. Let me see. In the 16th and 17th centuries, some Portuguese Jews took their African wives with them to the port cities of Antwerp and Amsterdam, where they were integrated into the respective communities. The presence of Israelites along the Niger River had been known by Jewish authorities in the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Lithuania, and Suriname. You guys go check out my videos. I cover this. I cover all of this in multiple videos over the last few years, talking about Israelites along the Niger River and the transatlantic slave trade taking place in the exact place that Israelites were known to be. And we'll come back to that. The rabbinic letters addressed to the Igbo by chief rabbis Dr. Solomon Herschel Lewin, David Meladola, and the Gaon of Vilna support the idea that there was contact between European Jewish communities and Igbo Israelites. All of the correspondence from the aforementioned rabbinic authorities addressed.
You're right, bro. Them African wives are everywhere, taking wives and all of that stuff, and they claim that they're African, but they say that they're black. They're trying to say that they're black Semites. Boy, this is going to be, I might have to just go over this whole thing and pull up his DNA and a boo and them other videos. This might be a whole, Friday, we may have to just, I got to try to get my schedule worked out.
The Igbos as brethren of the children of Israel. Accordingly, there is no doubt of their origins nor of their halakhic status as Israelites. All right, so now, if the Igbo are Israelites and 30 to 60% of Black Americans have an Igbo ancestor, well, we have to determine how many Black Americans they are. So in 2020, according to the Census Bureau, 41.6 million Black Americans lived here in America. And so if we look at 30% of that number, there are 12,480,000. If we look at 60% of that number, it is 24,960,000. So somewhere between 12 million and 24 million Black Americans have Igbo ancestry. And as we just read, a Sephardic Jewish organization known as the Obadiah Alliance declared Igbo to be descendants of ancient Israelites.
Yeah, this is too much. Yeah, gonna have to look into this because we got to make sure this stuff is right? Because if this is off, if this foundation is being laid out by him right here is off, the building is gonna be off. Inspectors ain't gonna pass it. It ain't gonna pass inspection. If this is off.
Well, if you look at those numbers and compare them to the numbers of the people in Israel today, you will see that the number of Israelites over here potentially vastly exceeds the number of people who call themselves Jews in the land of Israel today. So your number of maybe a couple 100,000 is off. Now, let me show you how much it is off. Remember, 30 to 60% of Black Americans have an Igbo ancestor. You claim that maybe a couple 100,000. So if we use a percentage calculator right here, let me see. All right, so if we put in 200,000 is what percent of 41.6 million, we get 0.48%. So it is your belief that less than 0.5% of Black people here in America could be Jews, yet the numbers seem to indicate that upwards of 12 to 24 million, maybe more, are likely to be Jews. So I would like to know what source you're pulling from, because you did not share what source you got this number of maybe as many as a couple 100,000. You didn't share that source. So I would appreciate if you shared your source. I just shared my justification and my line of thinking for believing that there are millions of potential Israelites over here. So I would need you to share exactly where you're getting your numbers from, so that we can compare those sources and see if we can figure out how many.
That's just my life experience, but who I am, what makes me tick to the core of my being is that I'm a child of God through faith in Jesus Yeshua. And I welcome all others who are children of God through faith in Jesus Yeshua. And it could well be that there are as many as a couple 100,000 Black Jews in America today. That could well be. But we're going to unpack this. We're going to look at this together. We're going to take some time. So sit back, enjoy this, stop and start the video as you need to, check references. And again, the desire is to glorify the Lord and pursue the truth. Okay, so let's just take a moment and start with scripture. I want to read to you from Genesis chapter 10. Genesis chapter 10, this is the table of the nations that we have after the flood, beginning in verse 1, Ve'elu toldot b'nei Noach, Shem, Ham, v'Yafet, v'yoldu lahem banim achar hamabul. So these are the lines of Shem, Ham, and Yafet, the sons of Noach. Sons were born to them after the flood. Then it says, B'nei Yafet were who? They're listed: Gomer, Umagog, Umadai, V'Yavan, V'Tuval, Meshech, V'Tiras. And the descendants of Japheth, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Yavan, Tuval, Meshech, and Tiras. And then Uvene Gomer, Ashkenaz, Riphat, V'Togarma. And the descendants of Gomer, Ashkenaz, Riphat, and Togarma. So Ashkenaz is listed here as what? A descendant of not Shem, not the Semites, but Yafet. All right. Now, the question is, who's Ashkenaz? Does Ashkenaz in the Bible have anything to do with Ashkenazi Jews? Okay. So now let's look another reference to the same Ashkenaz, Jeremiah chapter 51, beginning in verse 27, starting with the Hebrew word Su'u Nes Ba'aretz, Tikush Shofar Bagoyim. So raise a standard on the earth, sound a horn among the nations, appoint nations against her. This is the fall of Babylon. Assemble kingdoms against her, Ararat, Mini, and Ashkenaz. So this is a totally different group of people now, right? This nation, this people called Ashkenaz, nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with Jewish people. Well, who are they? If you will look at virtually every major Bible dictionary, Bible encyclopedia, here's what you'll find. I'm going to read to you, for example, from the Anchor Yale Bible Dictionary, one of the most respected Bible dictionaries, multi-volume. Who is Ashkenaz? Here's what you see. The first descendant of Gomer, who is the first offspring of Yafet in the table of nations. In Jeremiah 51:27, Ashkenaz appears along with Ararat and Mini as a kingdom called upon to oppose Babylon. The name is identified with the Neo-Assyrian Ishkuza, who appeared between the Black and Caspian Sea in the 8th and 7th centuries BC, driving out the Cimmerians. And it goes on. Who are they then? For Herodotus, so a famous historian in time before Jesus, these people came to be called the Scythians or Scythians, right? We could read through the rest of that in detail, but this has nothing to do with Israel. This has nothing to do with the Jewish people. This has nothing to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. It was an ancient people called the Scythians or Scythians, and they leave society. They disappear. They're all gone a couple thousand years ago.
All right, Dr. Brown, you said a lot. I'm glad you brought up Herodotus. So this is going to take us into some strange places because you brought up Herodotus. And when you bring up Herodotus, as Dr. Kennedy is going to tell you, I'm going to play a short clip from Dr. Kennedy. If you want to live by Herodotus, you got to die by Herodotus. So after I play her video and what she has to say, it's actually a couple of clips, what she has to say about Herodotus. And then I'm going to show some interesting stuff. Now, you said that the Ashkenaz of the Bible was descended from Japheth. There we agree. And you said that they became the Scythians, and then they disappeared into history. So after I show you Dr. Kennedy's comments about Herodotus, I'm going to read something about Herodotus. I'm going to show another source, but I'm also going to show something interesting about the Scythians, impossible connection to the Ashkenazi Jews. See, people are out here talking. And so I'm going to show you who is doing the talking. And it's not just regular people. This is from a university conversation. So I will show that to you after I show the two.
That's what's video he get ready to play coming up here? Not the heavy set white lady that was talking to two other people on the Zoom call on the Zoom. Let me see this video.
Two videos of Dr. Kennedy talking about Herodotus. And this is going to tie into what you said earlier, that you and other people have looked and you just don't see a Black Israel in the Bible. You don't see a Black Israel in history. And you don't even believe that there are that many people. You believe there's less than 0.5% of Black Americans that trace their origins to ancient Israel. So let's hear what Dr. Kennedy has to say.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for checking out the channel today, the study of antiquity and the Middle Ages. As always, I am your host, and I want to welcome you back to Race, Ethnicity, and the Ancient Mediterranean World. Dr. Rebecca Futo Kennedy, thank you so much for coming back on today.
Happy to be here.
So now we are getting to Herodotus. Ian McLean asked, Herodotus claimed that the Colchians were of Egyptian stock, that they were of dark skin and woolly hair. They weaved their clothes in the Egyptian manner and practiced circumcision. He believed they were the remnant of the European expedition by Pharaoh Sesostris. Why did Herodotus make these comments? Is there any evidence for Egyptian genes in modern Georgia? And what reason would Herodotus have for making these peculiar observations if they were completely unfounded? I'm going to summarize that right now and be like, basically what he's asking, were the Colchians African?
Yeah, so I think the actual question is why this is a question. Really, first off, we're never going to actually find, first off, the Egyptians, of course, were African, and we have evidence from Herodotus and other sources that Africans tended to be black, that they were a range of colors that would constitute black today. And they were actually, the Greek words that are used for them is black. Sometimes they don't comment on color because the Egyptians had a range of skin colors. Some Egyptians looked just like Greeks, who again were also often called black. Why? Because men, if you're a man in the Greek context, being called black-skinned is a sign of masculinity, and being outside and exercising in the nude in the gymnasium, the naked room, the naked place, as I often refer to the gymnasium, because that's what gymnos means. Gymnos means naked, if people don't know that. So when you go to the gym, you're going to the naked place, just so you know, the place where you should get naked. And so the question is, why is this a question? It's a question because of this heated debate over whether or not Egypt is, for us, two debates. One is, are Egyptians black in our common contemporary context? But also the other question is, are there quote unquote people of color in the ancient world? And so this is the problem that we have, right? This sort of assertion that goes back to, it's a very long-standing practice, but it sort of gets encapsulated for me in a quotation from the famous classicist Bernard Knox. In the sort of response to the Black Athena debates, he wrote an essay, gave a talk titled, and then it became a published essay called The Oldest Dead White European Males. And he says in it that, of course, the Greeks are not black. The Greeks are white, or rather, actually, they're really olive skin colored. So you see the sort of problematics of actually equating skin color with whiteness when it doesn't actually work. The Greeks are not British or German. But that's the other problem, is that there's been a lot of effort by scholars since really, Frank Snowden in his book, Blacks in Antiquity, to actually recognize and acknowledge that there are, in fact, Black people who are not just part of the ancient Mediterranean, but are integral to and exist in the ancient Mediterranean, in the Greek world, in the Roman world. They are Roman citizens, they're Egyptians, they are members of the Egyptian hierarchies, they're pharaohs in Egypt, etc. And so that is actually often what the question is really, what's hiding behind that question is trying to show the ancient world as a white space when it is not a white space. It is a multicultural, multi-ethnic, and in our modern terminology, multiracial world. And this idea that we can then go and find quote unquote Egyptian genes in Georgia is kind of funny, because what does it mean to have an Egyptian gene? Well, we decide what an Egyptian gene is based on partial reconstructions from like a handful of mummies. And we decide we modern scientists or modern geneticists decide these are the 5 markers out of the 30-some billion, alleles or whatever, however many millions there are. I think it's like 33 million alleles or something, that these 30 of them are going to be the ones that we decide makes them Egyptian. When Egyptian was a cultural designation, not a genetic designation. So how do we know where these things are going to pop up? We can't. And we can't actually use genes to make this decision. Herodotus describes a group of people called the Colchians as being black. And I would push, he doesn't say that they have dark skin and woolly hair. They say have black skin and kinky hair. Using woolly hair actually pretends that the word that he's using is the same word that's used for sheep, and it's not. Sheep's hair is not the word they use to describe people's hair. So we want to be careful. It's like tightly twisted, right? Or kinky hair, not woolly hair. And it's not dark skin, it's black. And this is a word that is used of Ethiopians, of Egyptians, of Odysseus, and others.
All right. Dr. Kennedy said a lot in reference to Herodotus. He said that the Egyptians were black with kinky hair. And it was you, Dr. Brown, who brought Herodotus into this by referring to the publication from Yale. So now here's something interesting. And this is what I said it's going to get a little.
Yeah, this is a mess. Yeah, this is a mess. This is a mess. I can't lie. Them Black Athena debates, and yeah, you have more. This is a mess because we got. That's what I'm saying. All this stuff we got to go back to Skull and Legacy and what the Egyptians look like, and this is a whole mess. All right, y'all. I might as well just
a little strange, awkward, maybe. So Herodotus, right here, you'll see this is called the. Let me see, the Kushites, Colchians, and Khazars, the Journal of Near Eastern Studies, Volume 18, Number 1, January of 1959. And I find it interesting that you say, oh, never mind. We'll come back to that in a second. We'll come back to this in a second. Now, my goal isn't to prove that you're Khazars. I'm just going to point something interesting out since you brought up Herodotus. And this is talking about those Colchians, the ones that were black that Herodotus referenced. And he said that the Colchians were related to the ancient Egyptians, or were actually ancient Egyptians, black ancient Egyptians. This is all going to tie together in a moment. And the reason this is important is because you don't see it in history. And you say that the people that you know don't see it either. And yet in the Bible, we see that Israel is mistaken for Egypt. Moses is mistaken for an Egyptian. All of Israel are mistaken for Egyptians when they mourn the death of Jacob. And later on, Paul is mistaken for an Egyptian. And we're not talking about these modern day Egyptians, because anybody who knows anything about history, just a basic understanding of history, tells you that there were the Greek invasion, the Roman invasion, and the Arab invasions, or the Arab conquest period, starting around the 7th century in the 600s AD. And it was the Arab conquest which shaped the visual of what we see today in the Middle East. You can confirm this by checking any history book or checking any scholar. They will confirm that the Arab invasions is what led to the current look of the modern Middle East. Before that, it was dark. So now I want to read something from real quick, Herodotus. Or not from him, but this is from Patrick T. English. Again, Kushites, Colchians, and Khazars. I think it's interesting that you brought up Herodotus, and that there is a link from Herodotus to the Khazars, which you're going to say later that you guys are not Khazars. Okay, fine. If you're not Khazars, I'm just going to point out this interesting stuff. When Herodotus visited Colchis in Mingrelia in the 5th century BC, he found its people to be, as he described them, black-skinned and woolly haired. But as Dr. Kennedy said, he actually said kinky hair. It says he described them black skin and woolly haired, that is seemingly of Negro type. So if you're going to accept Herodotus about the Scythians, you're going to have to accept Herodotus about the Colchis. It says they were, he says, circumcised. The Colchians, or the Colchis, the Egyptians, and the Ethiopians, he remarked, are the only races which from ancient times have practiced circumcision. The Phoenicians and the Syrians of Palestine, i.e. the Jews themselves, admit that they adopted the practice from Egypt. But that's not the part I want to point out. Now, they go through and they try to explain away black and saying, well, he may not have called them black because they were black. I find that interesting in history. Every time that black is referenced in Africa, of all places, and around Africa, that suddenly black doesn't mean black. And people try to.
Does black always mean black? In the Bible, does black always mean black, y'all? I'm going to have to do some of this. There's going to be so much. Oh, man. At least I got them portions highlighted. I'm going to have to show y'all some stuff. And y'all just tell me what y'all think. I ain't trying to stop the waiting. I'm going to show y'all some stuff tomorrow. And y'all tell me. We're going to all read it together. We're going to all put our minds together. What does Phineas ask the good? What does black even mean?
Explain away what black means, and you guys can go through. I'll leave a link to this if you have a membership to JSTOR. You can read it. So now, here's the interesting part I want to get to in this article from 1959, because you say you don't see this. So now, My thing is, I'm big on historical consistency. You may not know that about me, but if all things are true, they should be historically consistent. When an anomaly pops up in history, then we have to ask questions. And what we find is that Black Jews are not the anomaly. Black Jews are the norm. The anomaly are white Jews. And I'm going to show you guys something in a minute. Since you say that the Scythians were the descendants of Ashkenaz and that the modern Ashkenazi don't have anything to do with the Scythians. So now right here, we're just going to read this real quick. This is page 52 on this source right here. It says, across the Caucasus from Colchis and Abkhazia, the Khazar people ruled a wide empire between the 6th and 11th centuries AD. The Arab geographer Istakari, describing them, remarks that a section of the Khazars were brown or even black of skin. I've mentioned this before on my channel about the black Khazars, and I'm going to show you guys again in a second, as if they were a kind of Indians, not talking about Native Americans, but Indians from India. The nearest regions of India, however, are as far from Khazaria as from Lydia and are inhabited by comparatively fair-skinned peoples, whereas Herodotus' Black Colchians were, and the Abkhazia Negroes are, just across the mountains that were the southern defense of Khazaria's border. It is much easier to imagine that these Black Khazars had moved over the Caucasus passes rather than from India on a 2,000-mile route over mountains and deserts and through organized kingdoms. The very name of the Khazars might well be derived from Khaz, if that was the root of the name Kolcho, Abkhazians, and ultimately from Kash. Now, here's where it gets interesting, because I'm going to read another source. This is from 1959. The Khazars had a double kingship, a secluded sacred ruler under the Turkish title of Kakin, or Kakwan, and a secular ruler and a war leader under the Turkish title of Beg. The Abbas Goy, as the Greeks called the Abkhazians, had two kings. One was said to rule the east and one the west, but they are mentioned as a pair rather than as two independent sovereigns. The institution of a secluded and sacred king seems more African than Asian. Besides early Egypt, where the god was constrated with man, there are instances in West Africa at Shark Point, Fernando Po, Benin, Luango, Onitsha, and elsewhere. Strabo mentions it in Ethiopia. Let me see here. Let me shrink this so I can actually read that. I can't pronounce them words, and Pontus in the ancient Anstodian Cache. All right, let me enlarge it again. I'm not going to try to butcher all these names. And others. Nilote Negro kings were not allowed to go out to battle. The Khazars were believed to be proselytes to Judaism. But you guys say you're not Khazars. I'm just pointing out this information. The Khazars were believed to be proselytes to Judaism, but accounts are few and conflicting as to when or how they converted. One of these accounts is the so-called letter of Hasdai. States that, give me a second, I'm going to read this letter for you guys interested in this Khazar information. Now, I want you guys to Google letter of Hasdai. Now, remember, we just read that some of the Khazars, right here, a section of the Khazars were brown or even black of skin, as if they were a kind of Indians. They look like Indians from India. Now, I'm saying historical consistency one more time. All right, Dr. Brown, I want you to listen closely, because I find a few interesting things in your statement. And the reason I'm reading all this is because it all goes together. I'm going to refer back to all of this when I wrap it up at the end. Our fathers have told us that in the beginning of their or your settlement, the place was called Mount Seir. Who's associated with Mount Seir, Dr. Brown? Is it Esau? Now, I'm not saying any of this. This is from 1959. This is this is written in the Journal of Near Eastern Studies. So it says, I'm going to start over. Our fathers have told us that in the beginning of their or your settlement, the place was called Mount Seir. But my Lord knows that Mount Seir is far from the place where he lives. Our elders say that formerly it was called Mount Seir, but persecutions prevailed and they went out from affliction to affliction. These are Edomites, Esau. They're linking to the Khazars till they got possession of the land where they now dwell. Also, the old men of the former generation who can be relied on have told us how on account of their faithlessness, a persecution was decreed. And an army of Chaldeans rose up in anger and wrath. They hid the books of the law and the holy scriptures in a cave. And for this reason, they prayed in the cave. On account of the books, they taught their sons to pray in the cave morning and evening till the times were lengthened and they forgot and no longer knew about the cave, why they were accustomed to pray therein. But they practiced the customs of their fathers without knowing why. Then you say, it goes back to your father and your father and your father, as long as you could trace. Anyway, let's keep going. But you're not Khazar. You said you're not a Khazar. I'm going to accept your word for it. You're not a Khazar. But I'm just going to read this stuff about the Khazars. After a long time, there arose a man of Israel who was eager to know why. So a man of Israel is now in the presence of the Khazars. Remember that point. He entered the cave and found it full of books and brought them out from there. From that day, they set themselves to learn the law. Thus have our fathers told us, as the earlier generation heard from the one from the other. The whole matter is very ancient. So the Khazars, some of them were black. Somehow there's a man of Israel among them. I just want you guys to hold on to that point. All right, so now we have the one primeval language traced experimentally through ancient inscriptions in alphabetic. I'm not going to read all the rest of that, but here we go. Oxford University's 1854. So the other one was 1959. So this is 105 years prior to that. Now, see, somebody somewhere got it in their head that there were Khazars, white ones, and that there were a sect of them that may have been black, and these black ones were living among the white ones. And somehow there is a Jew who asked them, why did they do these things? So we know that the Khazars were in proximity to the Jews, or at least one Jew. But here, 105 years prior to that, we find another interesting reference to these black Khazars and who they were. Remember, I said historical consistency. So they have been described as black. The Khazars are described as black and looking like Indians from India. All right, so now let's talk about these black Khazars. We're going to tie all this together. Right here, the black Jews, this is, again, one primeval language. To begin with the country of the Khazar, Tartars, to which the Israelites, with certainty, are known to have migrated. Now, most people will say, well, see, they went into Europe. That means that they are not black. But let's keep reading. And from whence it has been clearly shown they must have passed into Afghanistan and India. It is expressly stated by Ibn Hakel himself, an eyewitness of the fact that there were two distinct branches or castes of the Khazars or the Khazars. We all know that spelling changes over time. It's spelled Khazars in some places, Chozars in others. So I'm sure you know this, Dr. Brown. This is for everybody else. The one white and the other black. That's consistent, historically consistent with what we just read from 1959, 105 years prior. They're saying there's two distinct sects or parts of the Khazars, one white and one black. It says, now they're in a region colonized by Israelite tribes, is the very same phenomenon which is found at the present day in the black Jews and white Jews of Malabar. It's talking about India. And we're going to come back to Dr. Claudius Buchanan Later on, when you mentioned Columbus in 1492, we're going to come back to Claudius Buchanan, Reverend Claudius Buchanan, and the black and white Jews. Mr. Elphinstone's work supplies a fresh example of the same character and contrast in a case still more nearly in point, that of one of the tribes of Afghanistan, the Nasrs. So the Nasrs are important. In their persons, they are small, black, and ugly. This is important. He says the Nasrs are small, black, and ugly. Well, let's find out who they believe the Nasrs are. We find the Nasrs enjoying the same liberty with most other Afghans. Let me make this larger. There we go. Afghans. That the Nasrs are Afghans and therefore, like the black Jews, claim to be B'nai Israel, or son of Israel. I'm sure you know that. May safely be rested on their own strenuous assertions. So they have people from India who we haven't looked at yet. These guys are black like the Indians. And we have seen so far, well, we haven't got to the Limba yet, but we've seen the Igbo. The Igbo are black. We see that the Egyptians are described as black by Herodotus. And Herodotus led into us talking about the Khazars. We find out there are two sects of the Khazars, the black ones and the white ones. And now they have brought the Nasrs into it of Afghanistan. The contrast in countenance and color is the only difficulty. A difficulty certainly not to be set in the balance against the national tradition of any tribe of Afghan race, although Mr. Elphinstone himself has not escaped its influence upon his judgment, observing that though they speak Pashto and strenuously maintain their descent from the Afghans, their features and appearance certainly indicate a race distinct from that nation. But whatever changes time and climate conjoined may produce in national physiognomy, there's another cause of change far more powerful than both, which in the present question has been strangely overlooked. I mean, intermarriages with other races. Now we know from the book of Nehemiah that such foreign alliances were not usual among the Jews after the captivity. I want to stress that point because later on, you're going to make a point about intermixing, Dr. Brown. And there are multiple sources I've gone over before that basically the Jews and the Hamites mixed, the Israelites and the Hamites mixed. But we're going to see that the white Jews and the black Jews kind of stay separate in history. It says, and as Manasseh had become a Tartar horde seated, as we have seen in the country of the Khazars. So now they're saying Manasseh, they're talking about the tribe of Israel, is now in the country of the Khazars. It may justly be inferred that they indulged in a similar latitude, intermarrying with their female slaves or contracting marriages with the black Khazars mentioned by Ibn Hakel. So they're marrying the black Khazars, which is consistent with the Bible and what we see throughout other parts of history. In the Bible, they mixed with Hamites. We'll see from other sources that they mixed when they went into Africa, they mixed with that native population. But I will point out that in the Bible, we do not see Israel mixing with Japheth. So let's keep going. The subject at large and the point in hand receive curious light from a single expression in the Cochin manuscript, whence it would appear both that the tribe of Manasseh had become tawny or black, and that this tribe had settled in Malabar and were the true ancestors of the black Jews. The expression in question is the tanned or sun-blacked Manasseh. It is introduced in connection with those most ancient Jewish records, which are said to date from the time of Nebuchadnezzar. Now, that's important. It's said to date from the time of Nebuchadnezzar, and which were spoken of as belonging to the sun-blacked tribe of Manasseh. In this one allusion, in this one allusion, we have the parentage of the black Jews. Is it not possible that the black Nasrs of Elphinstone may be the same stock, and that the name Nasr itself may be the corruption only of their patronymic Manasseh. So he's positing that the Nasrs in Afghanistan are linked to the black tribe of Manasseh, which is living among the Khazars. And we just read from the 1959 reference that the Khazars at some point converted to Judaism. They were proselytes. But I know you say you're not Khazars. Now, I want to point this out because you're going to bring up Arthur Koestler and some other stuff. And I noticed that you didn't talk about any of these other references, because way before Koestler, here in the 1800s, we see that somebody got the idea that the Khazars were living, or Jews and Khazars were living together. This is 1854. So now let's go over here. We're going to establish historical consistency, because see, the Nasrs were said to look like the Indians in India. And so now we have another reference. This is Anacalypsis. Let me see. This is by Godfrey Higgins. Let's see when this was written or published. This was published 1836. So this is published 18 years prior to this one. So Anacalypsis. I have formerly observed that I learned from Mr. Salome that the Lascars spoke Hebrew. Another Jewish friend met with two of the black Lascars from Malabar, that's India, Cochin in London, who were both Jews and spoke the Hebrew or Chaldee language. It's interesting that all these people are aware of black Jews in the 1800s with no internet. And you, Dr. Brown, said you and your friends in 2021, with the access to the internet that we have, you don't see any of this. But you guys can go on and read this. I'm not going to read all of this. It gets into the proselytes, but the whole point is he refers to the Lascars, and Lascars are a people which we can look up. And these are the Lascars of the East India Company. These are the Lascars right here. These don't look like white Jews to me. You said that you did not see it. Allow cookies. Or you said that you did not see these black Jews. So I'm going to go ahead and cut to the next part. And then I'm going to tie all this together. Now, there's a reason I'm bringing all this together. It may seem like it's random. It may not seem like a method to my madness, but I'm showing this because of what you're going to say coming up. And I just need people to have a good background in these references to black Jews before you say what you're going to say. All right. So now, interestingly enough, your reference to Herodotus has led us to black Khazars converting to Judaism, the Lascars being black Jews that spoke Hebrew from India. And now we find our way to an interesting reference. The University of Penn language log. This is University of Pennsylvania, their website, .edu. You guys probably can't see it in the thing, but this is the link will be there. This is from the University of Pennsylvania's website, language log. You guys can go on that and see that it is from the University of Pennsylvania. But the topic here from 2021 is quite interesting. Ashkenazi and the Scythians. Somebody seems to have it in their head that the Ashkenazi may be the Scythians that you claim disappeared from history and are completely different people than the Ashkenazi Jews today. I'm not going to read through this, but I'm going to put the link there for anybody that does want to read through. All right, so let's continue. We're going to jump back into Herodotus, and all these sources, they will be referenced again as we go through this video.
Oh, here's another Bible dictionary, Erdman's Bible Dictionary. Ashkenaz, the eldest of the three sons of Gomer, the son of Japhet, and the name of a kingdom, referencing these same verses. Most likely it was the Scythian kingdom, and then also referencing Assyrian, so Akkadian, Ishkuza. The connection to the Cimmerian invasions accounts for its relation to Gomer. Aligned themselves with the Mani, the Scythians revolted against Assyria in the 7th century BC, but were afterwards conquered by the Medes and the Persians in 538. They provided contingents of troops for the Persian attack against Babylon. And then after a few hundred years, they're lost from history. So they have zero to do with Israel, zero to do with Jewish people, zero to do with Ashkenazi Jews today. Zero. You say, well, where did the name Ashkenazi came from? So little over 1,000 years ago, as Jewish people scattered around the world had now emigrated in Europe and now were living in the Rhineland in Germany. They looked at the name Gomer in Genesis 10, and they connected Gomer with Germany. So they took on the identity of the name Ashkenaz. It has nothing to do with Ashkenaz in the Bible, which is a descendant of Japhet. It's just a name that was taken. Okay, it's that simple. Just like my last name Brown doesn't refer to the color of my skin or anything else. It was shortened from a Russian name when my grandfather came over at Ellis Island. The name got shortened to Brown. It's just a name. That's all it is. So the idea that Ashkenazi Jews are descended from Japhet is a myth, 100% false, zero truth to it. Just study the history, look into it, check the Bible dictionaries, encyclopedias, the archaeological works. You'll find the exact same thing. Okay.
All right. So I just want to be clear here, because in part of the video, you're going to refer to, Israelites that say you guys are fake Jews and you're not who you claim to be, and you guys stole an identity, stuff like that. You've made references to this in your video. And I find it interesting that, one, you didn't give a source for when this happened. And yet you tell us this story about 1,000 years ago. They just took a name. They had a culture. They just literally took somebody's culture. So your people are being accused of identity theft. And as a defense, you admit to identity theft. I don't understand what the end game is here. So if you're accused of identity theft and you're admitting that you guys just took the name Ashkenaz for no reason, you just took it because you wanted it. And now we're supposed to believe that you're not really the people you say that you aren't, I guess would be the right way to say. You're not really the people who you claim to be. I guess you guys claim to be Ashkenazi. You claim to have taken it from the Ashkenaz of the Bible, descended from Japheth. And then when people start identifying you as Ashkenaz descended from Japheth, you say, no, you guys are wrong. That's not us. We just took their name. We took their name because we wanted it. But we're really Jews from the line of Shem. But we took the name Ashkenaz from the line of Japheth to cause all this confusion. You say you believe the Bible. I believe you. But God is not the author of confusion. So please, can you explain to me what is the point of all this confusion? And also, please give me the source that says when this happened. I want to read it for myself, the whole entire story. See, I've been sharing sources this whole time, so I'd appreciate if you share all your sources with me. You say it's a myth that Ashkenazi are the Ashkenaz from Japheth, and yet you didn't prove that it wasn't a myth. All you admitted to was that you guys stole an identity, allegedly, assuming that you guys aren't the Scythians that you say you're not, assuming that you're not the Khazarians you say you're not. Why should we assume that you didn't steal another identity in addition to the Ashkenazi identity if what you're saying is true? These are just questions I have based on your own words that you guys stole an identity once. Who's to say you didn't steal an identity again? But let's continue.
Okay, so let me share with you, in my debate with Guerrilla Hebrew, what I presented there in terms of DNA and Ashkenazi Jews. When I was explaining after the fictional made-up 12 tribes chart and why that's bogus, and you could spend hours and hours demolishing it. There's not a scintilla of truth in it. But it was now time to briefly explain why Ashkenazi Jews are, in fact, legitimately Jews, part of the larger people of Israel, right? Along with Black Jews, along with Sephardic Jews, along with Mizrahi Jews, Middle Eastern Jews, and yeah, all part of the same people. When people say, well, Brown, when did this ever happen to Ashkenazi Jews? This is part of the people of Israel. My history goes back to Egypt. If you're a Black Jew, legitimately in Israel, your history goes back to Egypt when we were in exile. Our history goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
All right. So now you say your history goes back to Egypt. And the problem I have with all of this is, again, historical consistency. You brought out Herodotus. Herodotus says the ancient Egyptians were Black. The Bible says that Israel was mistaken for ancient Egyptians. And you don't look anything like an ancient Egyptian to me. Now, maybe something wrong with my eyes. I would like to know exactly who or what, or I don't know who, I don't know how to ask the question. Can you show historical records? Can you guys, or you, Dr. Brown, can you?
But didn't Brown already admit from the beginning of the video that the original or earlier Jewish people were not a European-looking people? He didn't admit that? Oh, I missed that part.
You show historical records that trace all the way back to Egypt, that link the Ashkenazi specifically all the way back to Egypt. I would be interested in seeing this because I'm going to show some more sources in a minute in response to what you're going to say about Columbus. And I'm going to tie it back to everything I said before. All that time I built up about tying black people to the Igbo, about pointing out what Herodotus said about the ancient Egyptians, pointing out about the black Khazars, the Sun-Black tribe of Manasseh living among the Khazars, whether or not the Scythians and the Ashkenazi are the same people, and historical consistency, because you said in the beginning of this that you and your friends, your friends at those other churches, do not see a black.
Gia, this is where the argument is coming in with converts and who's a convert. Most of what people would call the black Hebrew Israelites, they believe that God spread Israel all over the world, but they want to deny the people that look like Dr. Brown and say they have no connection to the Levant. Or along those lines, they want to argue that the light skin or the white Jews are the fake Jews. It's identity theft claims on both sides. As opposed to saying the light ones became light and dark ones became dark, and they started off as a brown people when they came up out of, or when they were at the foot of Mount Sinai.
Black Israel in the Bible, and so far everything that I've showed you is consistent. In India, you had the Lascars. They're black. They spoke Hebrew. I'm showing you sources from the 1800s to talk about the Sun-Black tribe of Manasseh. I've shown you 2 references to black Khazars, and one specifically saying that they were the Sun-Black tribe of Manasseh, likely tied to the Nasrs in Afghanistan. So I'm showing you multiple places where black Jews appear in history, and we're going to go back even further.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the study of antiquity and the Middle Ages. As always, I am your host, Nick Barksdale, and today we are joined once again by Dr. Rebecca Futo-Kennedy, who's going to take us through a thought-provoking episode on the term sub-Saharan and the whitewashing of ancient North Africa.
Yes, I just think we should sort of like, because this idea, this like sort of continually trying to find this idea of, separating out North Africa from sub-Saharan, as if the Sahara was the impermeable boundary that nobody could get through, is really a continually problematic type of argument. Particularly since we have early texts that tell us that, right, Herodotus tells us that, he says the Ethiopians and the Garamantes are indigenous to North Africa, and that, of course, the Phoenicians and the Greeks are not. But he makes it very clear that people they call Ethiopians are indigenous to North Africa and Northwest Africa in particular, right? But they are not sub-Saharan. So I constantly, what is the obsession that people have with this idea of sub-Saharan, that whenever they ask any question, what they're trying to do is prove that sub-Saharan Africans aren't part of the ancient Mediterranean world, which we know is false. Not only do we know, of course, that people that we would call quote unquote sub-Saharan Africans ruled Egypt before the Persians got there, among others, but that they have this continual culture that runs up and down the Nile. And we know from our ancient sources that they believed very firmly, and they interacted with what in the area that they called Libya, right? So ancient geography, Herodotus separates, there's a big geographic debate in the 5th century, right? So on the one hand, we have Hecataeus, who has his map of the world, and Herodotus seems to be addressing him and trying to correct him at various points in his history. But there's debate of whether there's one continent or 2 continents, whether everything west of the Nile is its own continent called Libya, or whether it's not. One of our ancient sources actually has Europe and North Africa as one continent. Yeah, because Libya is the name that he uses for everything west of Africa, essentially, is what Herodotus uses. But it's also used at some points for the entire continent of what we call Africa, because remember, Africa is a Roman word. It's not a Greek word. They didn't call it Africa. But yeah, this idea that there's a natural impermeable boundary that starts at the Sahara Desert, and that there's no penetration, and that everybody who has quote unquote black skin is below that line historically, and everyone above that is somehow magically white, shows one, a real lack of knowledge of how space works and how geography functions and how mobility and movement in the ancient world functioned. It shows a very limited view of our ancient sources. Like I said, I think I said this in another clip, if you're going to live by Herodotus, you got to die by Herodotus too. And if you're going to cite Herodotus for evidence of one thing, then you have to accept the fact that Herodotus says that black people, Ethiopians in our ancient parlance, Ethiopians really in our ancient parlance, are indigenous to North Africa. They're indigenous to Libya, which is his word for basically everything north of the Sahara, because as far as he's concerned, south of the Sahara is uninhabitable, right? They believe that was an uninhabited region, uninhabited zone. Nobody lived there. It was too hot. So this is you have to understand that our ancient sources were very clear that in that northern part of Africa, that's where Ethiopians lived, were indigenous to. That means there were black people there, but also the people that we refer to now as either Nubians or Cushites. Those were also called Ethiopians by our Greek sources, and they were in Egypt, and they controlled Egypt for various times. And we actually have a lot of evidence, if you put Egypt into its African context in antiquity, its vision is not to the north, right? It looks to the Nile and to what we would call south, right? To the upper Nile, the upper Egypt. And in fact, the cult of Isis is actually integrated across the what we would consider the two separate kingdoms of Egypt and Nubia in antiquity, but their worship of Isis is almost identical, and they are integrated and looking to each other as early as the second millennium BCE. So we really just need to not think about this separation, which isn't even a modern separation, right? This idea of sub-Saharan is a modern racist trope, that there is a magic dividing line, and it is a modern racist trope that develops back from, I'm thinking I should do an Ngram, Google Ngram, just to see when the term sub-Saharan first pops up in books, right? Because one of the things you can always tell is when things start to get hot and when they're not. But if you look at someone like Cuvier, who was one of the early scientists dealing with race back at sort of the turn of the 18th to 19th century, so 1801, 1802 or so. He's the guy who got Sarah Bartman's body after she died, the Hottentot Venus, and had it stuffed and had her genitals and things preserved for study. He makes clear comments about how taking the heads of mummies, which they were sort of just getting at this time out of Egypt, and her dead body and her face, and putting them together. And so here's this like 6,000 or 4,000 year old mummified head, which clearly is not in its original form, right? With her body, a model made of her, and says, look, it's very clear from looking at these two that regardless of whatever their skin color was, they're clearly different races. Because their heads are different, because he was a craniometry guy. So if you sort of think about when is this obsession with sub-Saharan kicking in, it's kicking in when we're trying to, in a period of time where we're trying to separate off Egyptian, these ancient kingdoms that are being discovered by modern Europeans, and the sort of Black South. And actually, I'm looking at a Google Ngram right here that goes back to 1800 up to 2008. I'm going to smooth it out here a little bit more. And the term doesn't start to appear in books anyway, in English, in the English language, until roughly 1978. So why? why does this term emerge? It has like very little life before that, and then all of a sudden in the 1960s and 1970s, I see here's an appearance of it in on communism in the Soviet Union. In sub-Saharan Africa is one of the earliest ones that you're finding.